Welcome everyone to this week in Svelte. I hope you can hear me better because I've increased the volume of through OBS, and B, started using the microphone that you cannot see. So I hope, yeah, that's it. Started using a better microphone, so I hope you can hear me better. I still had some people tell me that it was not loud enough, so I hope this fixes the problem. I hope. Tell me, please tell me, so that you can have a better experience. Welcome to episode 91. Today we will have a community showcase, and a nice one, very nice one, because Grisha will actually join me, another Svelte ambassador. It's the creator of Threlte, and they released Threlte 8, new version that fully supports Svelte 5, so I can't wait to hear from him about this stuff. Even though, like, I was talking with him, and the problem is I really kind of suck at 3D, so I wish I was a bit better at it, because I would be very excited about Threlte. Like, I'm already excited just for, like, the fact that the possibility that unlocks, even if it's not for me, because I am not able to do 3D, but I want to try out someday, and I will do it someday. Okay, let's dive right into the changelog, because I cannot wait to hear from about Threlte. And we actually have it was quite of a blunt week. We have just a couple of releases, because there are other stuff that we are working on, and but mostly open PRs. We might even take a look at some of those just to check, to check what you think about that. Okay, so let's start with what we actually released. So we have fix initialize files bind on hydration. This was a very weird one, because apparently in Firefox, if you set a file if you select a file and you refresh the page, the file is still there. So it's literally like you select a file, you refresh the page, hard refresh, Command R, and the file is still there. And we were not setting the variable inside the bind. So if you did bind files and you refreshed the page in Firefox, it was not assigning the files to your variable, and it was fixed. But it was very weird. Like, I never thought something like this, like that. Ensure untrack correctly retains the active reaction. So this was something that was opened by Dominic, and untrack is the function that you use when you want to prevent a read like inside an effect, you can use untrack to make sure that a variable that you read does not participate in the array of dependency, basically. And this was basically previously was done just by setting the active reaction. So there is a global active reaction that we use to determine in which effect you are running. And this was done by basically setting that variable to null and then set it back to the previous one when untrack finish running. But this was causing some problem to the reactivity graph, and so like it was implemented, Dominic implemented a fix for this. More efficient template effect grouping. This was another thing that Rich did. To basically allow you, like when there is a template, so when there is a text node inside a template, before we were creating a bunch of deriveds for every single piece of that node, and now instead is a single derived, so it's much more efficient for Svelte. Omit unnecessary nullish coalescence in template expression. This is from Ocean, I guess. I don't know how to call it. I don't know. But basically, like it's a contributor. Is around the Svelte repo a lot, and he realized that we were basically creating a bunch of nullish coalescing, even when it was really not necessary, because like we do that because in Svelte 5, undefined and null will show not null or undefined, but it will show literally an empty string. And so we were basically doing a nullish coalescing to check if null, question mark thing. But sometimes this was unnecessary because maybe the user is already using a nullish coalescence. So that expression is statically analyzable that will never be null. And so he actually did something that made your code that you ship to production just a tiny bit better. So it's nice. There was another release to address a regression with untrack. So this change actually introduced a small regression, but was immediately fixed, and it's nice. Let's see what SvelteKit has to do. Fix correctly handle relative anchors when using the hash router. So, yep. In Advent of Svelte, we released the hash router, basically allowing you to use the hash part of the URL to determine on which route you are. And this is something that in the good old days was pretty common. And now you can actually do it in SvelteKit. And yep, and like it had a small problem, and now it is not. Correctly resolve index file entry points such source service worker index.js. Okay. So if you use this as an entry point, probably it was not resolving it correctly. Avoid overwriting header for sub requests made while loading the error page. I love when there is such like specific stuff, such very niche case, but it's good. Like, thank you for reporting anyway, and please always report, because it's something that, like, without reporters, open source is basically dead. So we have a new ensure Svelte keyboard events modify game state without a trip to the server if client-side JavaScript is enabled. So this is a change to the demo template that you open. Add prepare script to run SvelteKit sync. So this is something that I think we kind of already talked about this last week, but basically right now SvelteKit has a a post-install script that runs after you finish installing your dependency. And it was just basically to run this SvelteKit sync, and this is a command that basically generates the types for you and the manifest of the router and stuff like that. And the problem is that post-install scripts are kind of dangerous in general. Like, obviously in this case, is not a problem because it's just SvelteKit creating files. But let's say that a malicious actor actually, I don't know, take over SvelteKit, the SvelteKit repo, and changes SvelteKit sync to send, like, to install a keylogger or stuff like that. That could be very dangerous, so that's why PnPm 10 will not run post-install script anymore. And so this was basically the tipping point for us to completely remove the post-install, and now it's done on prepare. And prepare is similar in the sense that it does not run when you install a package, but when, like, it's within your project, when you install, it will run this project. Like, if you have the prepare script inside your package.json, not in the SvelteKit package.json, then it will run the SvelteKit sync. So this means that, like, PSA, if you have a project, you should also add this prepare script, so that whenever someone download your repo and want to launch the dev server, it will also run the SvelteKit sync the script. So yeah, add it if you want, and this basically was to add it to the default template. There's also an update to vid6, forward exit code for external packages command. So basically, this was like, if you run SV, which is the CLI, to, I don't know, format your code or to do a migration and stuff like that, sometimes we might need to forward your command to another package. For example, for Storybook, or to add SAS, for example. We don't do it ourselves. Like, we just forward, we invoke the command. And the exit code was not forward. So if the issue, like if the package was failing, for example, it would exit with a negative error code, I think. Yeah, it would exit with a negative error code, but SV itself was exiting with 0 anyway. And so sometimes this is used by projects to, I don't know, determine if the script was successful and maybe rerun it automatically. I don't know, but it is important. It's a good thing to forward it back. Adjust declaration map paths, avoid unnecessary netlify edge function invocation for static file, resolve aliases more robustly. Yeah, nothing much more. I just want, so let's have a look, because there are a couple of very interesting PRs that I want your feedback on. So Svelte.js, Svelte/pull. So if we open our pull request, there are a couple of interesting pull requests open. One is, I think it's the most commented pull request in Svelte right now, and it's this feat attachment. So this is something that introduced attachment, which are essentially a more flexible and modern version of actions. The syntax was like this. Technically is like this, like we didn't take a decision yet, but this was the initial proposal. A lot of people were not really into this kind of proposal. So there are 200 comments discussing the syntax, and so that's why Rich also opened an alternative attachment syntax, which is much more neater, very cool. So if you have any ideas, please comment. It's much more calm. There are just 16 comments. And then there is also another interesting feature. And I actually personally developed this, and I personally ask you to go and try to break it. Because basically these are on change on the state rule. So this is basically to if you have some array or some object, you can basically register a callback so that whenever that thing changes, even deeply, it will invoke this on change without needing to use an effect. And this has several advantages. First is sync, so you will not have a microtask in between. But most importantly, like you don't need to put it inside. You don't have to put it inside an effect root for it to work. So if you want to have some utility functions like that sync to the local storage, you don't have to create an effect inside that utility function. I think it's pretty nice. There were some problem that hopefully I fixed. So this also got some comment. The last commit should be the good one. So please go and break it so that I can eventually fix your problem too. I don't know if we will end up merging this, but it was a nice thing to work on. Let's switch to the usual announcement at this point. I will talk about this basically until May because I am so excited about this. Svelte Summit Spring 2025 in Barcelona. There's also an online part you can buy. And please come. I know I cannot wait to meet you all. And yeah, the venue is very cool. And I literally I cannot wait to meet everybody. And yeah, if you want to come, we can have a lot of chats and stuff like that, even live. Okay, so that's it for our usual agenda, and now it's time to switch to the serious business. So I will switch to my other thing, and here, Grisha. I hope that I pronounced it correctly. I don't know if I did. And I think they can hear you. I think you're muted. Yep.
I hope that I pronounced it correctly.
Oh, I can hear myself back a lot.
But now not anymore, right?
Yes, not anymore. Thanks. So I hope I pronounced it correctly. Is Grisha, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's no real pronunciation. I heard everything. So.
And yeah, I mean, he is a Svelte ambassador. He's the creator of Threlte. I don't think he has need for presentations. And actually, he has a presentation about Threlte V8, and I cannot wait to hear from you. So I will phase myself out. And as usual, if you have any question for him, drop them in chat, and later we can have a Q&A. So, ladies and gentlemen, Grisha and Threlte.
Thank you very much. By the way, I'm trying to read the chat simultaneously. So when you have anything pressing, and I feel like I have the time to respond, then just throw it at me. Yeah, thank you, Paulo, for having me. Today I want to share with you the latest developments in Threlte. But first, let's see what Threlte actually is. Threlte is a framework for creating 3D applications with Three.js and Svelte, which is obviously your favorite front-end framework. And some words about me and what my experience is there. I worked as a freelance software developer for a long time before I got now employed. And I was for a long time supporting a Dutch artist duo, and I created a lot of net art with them, net art projects, of which some were implemented using Three.js. And back then I was using React, and I wasn't particularly happy about using React. And so at some point I tried to come up with like an alternative to React 3 Fiber, which is in fact like a great project, but it just uses React, right? So that's when Threlte was born. But maybe we first have to go a little bit further back. What is Three.js even? I'm not sure if everybody is aware what that is. I'll just briefly talk about it. Three.js is a library that abstracts WebGL. So WebGL is basically a rasterizing engine. I think that's what technically speaking it is. It doesn't know 3D in that sense, and it doesn't have concepts like cameras, textures, textures. It does, but materials and objects and stuff like that. The raw API for the scene you see on the right is like the raw code is on the left, and you see that this API is extremely verbose. It's very hard to work with, and that's why Three.js is so yeah, such a standard in 3D web development, because it establishes concepts that makes it really easy to work with. So this is kind of the same scene, but yeah, the code part is very narrow, very small, and you see you have concepts like a scene, a perspective camera, a renderer, different geometry types, materials, and it's very easy API in a way. But one thing, I don't know if you noticed, but Three.js is around for longer than WebGL. Just saying. One thing that might jump into your eyes when you see that is the similarity to another API that we are used to, and that is the JavaScript DOM API, right? So it has similarities. There is like a create element, which is the instantiation of a class in Three.js. And let's be honest, who wrote like an entire web app using the JavaScript DOM API? I think nobody really, at least like not in my bubble. And that's what we have these frameworks for, right? So we use declarative markup to be, or like to make our apps more scalable, more readable, less prone to errors. Declarative is like a big word, and I always try to use it as infrequently as possible. But in this case, it just makes sense in a way. I also like to use composability, or things that are composable. It kind of means the same, but still, declarative means that we can use control structures and state management of our framework to remove and instantiate objects. Sorry. And that the control structure itself handles many aspects that we would otherwise have to implement ourselves. And this is pretty much what Threlte is about. And Threlte is basically Svelte in Three.js, right? Here's a little an example of what it looks like to instantiate a camera. So the top part is imperative vanilla, as they call it, Three.js. So you have a camera and you have to add it to the scene. There are some constructor arguments that you have to follow. And in Threlte, there's this one component that you use for pretty much every object that Three.js has to provide, and that is the T component. And so there is this notation T dot, and then something that you want to instantiate from Three.js, and then it just does its thing, right? It instantiates the object, it binds it automatically to the parent element. So this scene.add camera, we don't have to do that. That's just handled internally. So let's see what another an example looks like. In this example, we are creating like a little box, like a cube, right? So we have a box geometry, a material, and a mesh. And in the imperative style, it's straightforward still, right? But there are things which can be like foot guns, right? Which is a foot gun, for example. There is no automatic garbage collection for some things of Three.js. So textures, for example, are not automatically garbage collected, and geometries, and you have to dispose of them manually. And we can make use of the Svelte lifecycle of components to automatically get rid of things if they are unmounted, which is super handy, I think. And now, demo time. So I'm going to switch to cursor. And so what do I want to do? I want to build like a little product configurator, right? This product configurator should be allowed to configure an e-scooter. So I downloaded this model from Sketchfab. It's an e-scooter. It was like a regular scooter. I just deleted the exhaust. So now it's an e-scooter. And in the end, I want the customer or the user to be able to select the seat color and the body color. And I want it to be a little bit responsive to the cursor position so that it's like slightly 3D, right? And that's already, I can tell you, I looked at a lot of product configurators. And I think it's already way better than everything else that at least the German automotive industry has to offer. And we're going to do that in like 20 minutes. This might feel a little bit rushed to you, but I think this video will be up as like a on-demand video, right? So if you feel like you can just go back in time, pause whenever you like. And I'm also going to post the code on GitHub for you to check it out. Yeah. First of all, this is the model that we're going to use. I'm currently opening this model in Blender, and what we're going to do is export this model as GLB. I did that already, so I'm not going to bother doing that again. What I did was setting up a new Svelte Kit app with this new Svelte Kit CLI. I love it. npx sv create, and I set up a new Svelte Kit app. On top of that, I added Tailwind for reasons. I cannot handle regular CSS anymore, I'm sorry. And in the static directory, I have like a folder that is called models. In there's this scooter GLB file, which is the output of Blender. So this is coming directly from Blender. Then there is like an environment HDR file, which I'll come back to later. And then there is like something app.svelte.ts, which is the state. I'm also covering that later. I made like some utilities. I also am covering that later, and a config. So, but let's first have a look at the page. On this page, I think the development server is still running. This is the page that we're looking at. Like, this is the code for this page. And inside of this blue box, I'd like to render my 3D electric scooter. I also set up like a small configuration panel up here. So whenever some of these color swatches are pressed, some state changes. We can inspect the app state dot, and then there is this paint color and seat color, and you already see the type in this preview, right? It's for example, paint color can be black, white, some red, I think, and some green value. No, green value, then red value, something like that. And we're going to use this reactive state to color our model and make everything fancy. But first of all, we have to install some stuff, right? We have to install Threlte and stuff like that. We didn't do that yet. So we're going to threlte.xyz. 1 second. All right. First, we're going to threlte.xyz, go to documentation, and then there is this installation section where you can choose which package you want to install. Really handy. We had like a scaffolding tool before, a scaffolding CLI. We ditched that, we deprecated that with Threlte 8 because we ultimately want to hook into the SV CLI that Svelte offers, and yeah, we were basically running behind Svelte versions all the time, so we didn't want that to continue. But first of all, we're going to use Threlte Core, which is like yeah, we just need that. And on top of that, we are going to use a new package, and this is the Threlte Studio. You see that Threlte Express is automatically selected as well whenever I'm selecting the studio. Okay, I think this is better. And because the studio is making use of extras. Extras is like a package that has a lot of components, abstractions on top of the core. And we're going to install that, make a new terminal. I'm sorry if this looks really painful to you, or like I think it looks good to you, but it's painful to use, I can tell you that. Bun install, I'm going to use bun to install these things. I missed one. I'm just seeing it now because I'm using TypeScript. I'm also going to install the type definitions of Three.js. Okay, so now we are up and running. And the dev server, I'm just going to restart that. I have, yeah, I had the experience that things just run better if you're from time to time. If you're installing dependencies, it works better. So as you can see, this is the blue box that I was talking about, right? If we are having a look at the page, this is the blue box. The background tag tells us that. And we're just going to drop the canvas component in here. We don't see anything here, but if we are clicking on that, we can see that the canvas is automatically as large as the parent element that we place it in. So that is already, I think, a large convenience above regular Three.js. We don't have to worry about setting up the render size, output size, device pixel ratio, stuff like that. We just drop it in here and it works. A common convention in Threlte development is that you have this canvas component here, and everything else you put into a sub component. I call this pretty much all the time just scene, and this is where we work in. So we're just jumping to the scene. You see that there's nothing in here, but this is where we add all of the stuff that we're going to add. First of all, how do we now access this Scooter GLB file? There are a lot of possibilities to include 3D models in an actual 3D scene, but we are going to use a CLI that is called Threlte GLTF. So just for your notice, GLB and GLTF is the same file format, but one is binary, one is not. One is readable and one is not. Like the binary one is not really readable, right? It's smaller and it includes all textures and everything. So and it's just one file. The other ones sometimes is not. Yeah. So what can we do now? We are using this CLI Threlte GLTF to make a component from a GLTF file. In this case, a GLB file. We're going to make a new terminal. I'm just going to reuse that one. Nope, that was wrong. Anyway, we go to static because that is where our model is placed in. And then let's see if I can find the command. Yes, this is the one. We are running the command npx at threlte gltf. So this is the binary bin that we are actually running. It's called scooter, not scooter 2. And then there are some flags that we are adding. T is that we want TypeScript output. K is that we want to keep the names of the objects that we saved them as in Blender. You see in a minute what that means. P is that we are using a precision of 4 digits. I means that the component should be isolated, so we actually cannot pass props to it. That makes things a little bit more safe to use in general. And U means that this component is suspense ready. Also, we are going to see in a minute what that means. I'm going to run that, and a new component is unlocked. This one, scooter.svelte. It just showed up. I'm going to drag that in source lib components, and we're going to have a quick look. So we are seeing the command that this component has been auto-generated by, and it allows us to inspect what actually has been saved in this GLB, and you're going to see what this GLB contains, right? It contains a lot of meshes, main body, rear parts, lamps A, lamps B, driving, from small parts. If we're going back to Blender, we see that this is exactly what we're seeing here. So there is like a one-to-one translation, not one-to-one in all cases, but in this case, it's kind of one-to-one. Yeah, let's see what that looks like, right? So we now have just a component that we can drop into our scene. So scooter, just like that. There's not much to see. That is odd. Why is that? I think now is a good time to introduce this new studio package that we have. How do we do that? Let's see. Studio. Still like a, yeah, I think this is all that we have to do. So we wrap our scene with this studio component. Go to routes, page, studio. No, doesn't work. Not sure why. Oh, 1 second. I think I know what that is. Yeah. Okay, so here is our model. It actually showed up before, I think. But this is the UI that the studio provides us. So I think let me first get rid of the console. Otherwise, everything is way too small anyway. So we have kind of we call it spatial programming toolset now. And that means we can switch to an editor camera, for example, and look at our scene. And we also see what the default camera sees, right? We can watch things in a wireframe, solid, rendered, stuff like that. And we can also inspect what our scene looks like, and we are again seeing the parts that we see in Blender. So, but this is odd. This is not how it's supposed to look, and that is because our object has physical materials on it, or at least materials that react to lighting, and we don't have any lights in our scene. So we're going to add that, and we're going to add a really quick way of realistic lighting on materials that mainly reflect things. And paint and car paint is exactly that. It's mainly reflecting light. And so we're going into our scene, And we're going to use a component called environment from Thread Extras, and we're giving that this environment map that I was talking about earlier, which is in static, which is in our static folder. And if we add that, oops, that already looks way better, right? All right, but if we have a look at what our main camera sees, that's quite uninteresting, I guess. That's not like a good feeling for a configurator. So we're going to address that. We need to make a new camera, because this camera that you see down here, it's the camera that Svelte just creates because we need some camera. But pretty much for every use case, you want to make your own camera. We do that again with this T component. So these ones, environment, right? Environment is Scooter also uses all these T components, T.mesh, basically only T.mesh. And in this case, we are using T.perspective camera to create a camera. And we also have to tell Threlte that we want to render with this camera. And we do that with the prop make default. Okay, so yeah, what do we see now here? If we go into our scene hierarchy, I'm not sure if you can see that on stream, but we have this, the frustum of the camera is also visible. And now we can basically drag around the camera and adjust its position. And if we are now back into in the camera that we actually rendering with, we see that yeah, it's actually there where we set it to be. If we now reload the page, it's still back at this position. Wouldn't it be nice if we somehow persisted that, right? And that's where a Vite plugin comes into play that is part of the Threlte Studio. So we are also implementing that. We're going to our Vite config and adding that before SvelteKit, right before SvelteKit. I just guess that this worked now. Yeah, we're just restarting anyway. Okay, if we're now loading, then you can also see that this little save icon up here is now green. Green means that the Vite plugin has been found and that autosync is enabled. Okay, again, let's have a look at our scene. We have this perspective camera here, right? It doesn't have any position property attached, right? Position is a property which is an array of X, Y, Z number where our camera is in the scene, but we don't have that yet. So let's maybe just drag our camera around until we like it. A little bit up, like that maybe. So this is what the output now looks like. And if we are now going back to our code, we see that position is now saved to the component and rotation as well. So if now I'm reloading, you see that the camera is actually still in the same position. So this is the first really great part about Threlte Studio, that things get persisted on this T component. It's exclusive to the T component. Not really. I'm coming back to that again in a second, but I think this is already great. This is also why we called it Spatial Programming Toolset. It's because there is no runtime code of the studio. It just vanishes, right? It's gone because the studio just saves properties as if they were, I think I'm going to, anyway, yeah. It just saves them to the property, to the component, right? So there is no runtime code. So if I'm now getting rid of that studio, you can disable it with a hotkey. It's just gone. Okay. How do we now wire up the color of the body and the seat to our state? Actually, that is also very easy with the use of the studio, because you can see in this scooter.svelte file that there are a lot of meshes. And sometimes it's quite hard to follow what is which part of such a mesh. But we can just, no, we can't. Maybe we can, I don't know. What's happening? Oh, now we can, no? Okay, something is not right. Anyway, main body, there it is. Okay, in this case, it was quite easy to see, right? Now I can. Maybe it's because I zoomed in with the browser at 200%. Could be that this interferes with certain things. I'm also sorry if this looks really crappy, because the UI is so huge. This is just for the stream. There is this handy button up here that is called Open in Editor. And what that does is it opens up the editor right at the object that I selected in the Studio UI. And now we are using what we call pierced props. So we are setting the color property of the material. So material.color, we are going to set to appstate.paintColor. And if everything went right, we can already toggle through the colors. That was quite easy, right? And we can do the same with the seat. I think I just have to select it like that. Open in editor, it jumps to the seat. Material.color is appstate.seatColor. And now I can make really cool ones or less cool ones. All right. But this is not where we stop with this, right? There is also one thing in Studio that I think is really cool, and that is the static state functionality. You remember that I said that I want this whole thing to react to the mouse position. So if I move the mouse to this end and to this end, I want the perspective to slightly change so that you feel the depth to the scene. And also there's one thing missing. We need shadows, right? Shadows are always cool. And in this case, we have this contact shadows object in Threlte Extras that you can just dump in there, and it creates a cool shadow underneath. Really easy. I think that's very much suitable for product configurators. All right, but this one has an opacity property, and I'd like to somehow be able to control that as well and configure that in the UI. How do I do that? I could add a whole new extension that is visible in this toolbar up here, but that's way too complicated for this particular case. If you're doing really complicated stuff, would make sense, but in this case, no. In this case, we're going to facilitate static states. And what that means is I'm going to create a class scene config extends static state. And this is the magic sauce. Extend static state does a lot of things. Let's put it that way. In development mode. In production, we want it to vanish as well, that it does just nothing. It's not there yet, but it's not a big overhead or something like that. And now we can just create a class member, for example, shadow opacity. We are going to employ a state rune here and make it 1. We are instantiating that. Scene config is new scene config. And now we can say opacity is scene config shadow opacity. Okay, and then there is this toggle static state, and this automatically adds all properties of that class to this panel here. So if I'm now setting that to 0.5, you see that the shadow gets less dense, right? But if we switch to our editor, you can already guess what happened. Shadow opacity is now 0.5. That's pretty handy. Now, but the UI is kind of odd, right? I can bump it up to 13.2, which is weird for an opacity of a shadow. I want it to be in the range of 0 to 1. I can do that with JS-doc. So I'm opening up a JS-doc, what do you call it, section, and I'm going to employ 2 JS-doc annotations or tags, I think it's called. One is min. I want it to be the minimum of 0. Max is 1. Oh, override. And now it transformed into a slider from 0 to 1. That's kind of neat. Okay, next up is the camera work, right? For this camera trick to work, I need the initial camera position set to a certain value, and I then also need the position of the cursor on the screen. I have made like a little bit of a utility class for that. I have to be honest. I'm just calling that mouse chords is new mouse chords. And what that does is it has X and Y values of where the mouse is from -1 to 1, like -1 to 1, -1 to 1, I think. Something like that. And we're going to employ that to position our camera. Still, we want to be able to set the camera to the initial position of the camera in code as well. So we are creating initial camera position. Jesus, it's late. State X, Y, Z to an object. And then I will also make a new property which is called look at. And it's also going to be a state of X, Y, Z. Okay, but how do we apply that to our camera? So this camera position, we need to apply that somehow to this perspective camera. We can do that as a property. In this case, I will not do it like that. I will first get a reference to the camera from bind it to the reference inside of that T component. Oh no, perspective camera. Oh no, wait, sorry, this is completely wrong. Like that. So we are using like a state, like a reactive variable called camera, and bind it to the reference of this T component. So now at some point, camera is a perspective camera, and this T component is mounted. And now we're going to use an effect. If the camera is undefined, we're just going to not bother and immediately return, right? But if it's there, we can make use of the position of the camera and set it to a certain value. We see that set accepts X, Y, Z values, so X, Y, and Z, and we are doing exactly that. We are going to use the scene config initial camera position X, and now is the magic sauce. We are adding to that a springified value of the mouse position in the X axis. And we are doing exactly that for the Y axis. And we are, because the mouse position on the viewport is just two-dimensional, we cannot do that on the Z axis. But still, this is what it now looks like. And so we are setting the camera, we're setting the position of the camera, and in the next step, we are also setting, we are telling the camera to look at a certain point in our scene. And we do exactly the pattern above. So, all right. So what does that now look like? That looks odd, right? That looks really odd. If we are using the editor camera, we can see that something is off, and I think it's the initial camera position. If we set that to something like 2.5 or 0.5, 2.5, things already look better. So if I'm now getting rid of the studio, you can see that looks already quite nice, right? And now I'm going to change the look at. So right now we're looking at basically this point, right, where the shadow is, but I want it to look at like in the middle of the scooter. And this is on the Y-axis a little bit up. So like that. Still, everything is very much zoomed out. And this is something I can set on the camera. That there's this field of view property. I can just set it to something like 30 maybe. Oops. All right. That's pretty cool. I think that is kind of it for the demo. There are some things that are left out, like suspense and stuff like that. If you feel like you want to learn more about that, hit us up on the Discord, and I can like show you what I wanted to do as well. But I think my time is very much up. I have a little bit of more of, I think this presentation is not really over. So Threlte 8 comes with 7 packages, as I explained already. There's this extras package, which has like a lot of common abstractions that you are otherwise rewriting with every new project. Then there is a GLTF to code converter that I showcased in the demo. Then there is Rapier, which is a physics integration of a physics library that is called Rapier. There is a Theater.js integration for it, and also XR, so you can do WebXR apps with it. Rich Harris is a fan of that already. Then there is a Flex package, which lets you create Flex layouts in 3D space. Really fun. And now there is the Threlte Studio, which I just showcased to you, and I think it's great. I think it's a great addition to the ecosystem. Yeah, if you would like to know more about it, there's the documentation website, threlte.xyz. There is a Discord server, which is super nice to chat and to support, to give support. And we are on Blue Sky, thread.xyz. Thank you very much. That's it.
Okay, that was awesome. Like, it's super cool, and honestly, I don't know which part I like more. Like, I think like my mind was already blown with the conversion between like a 3D model and a 3D model and a Svelte component. I like that. That's already super cool. But I think like the Threlte Studio is really the cherry on top. It's very easy to configure your 3D stuff, I think, and like most importantly, like it's really the attention to detail that I think it really matters, because the fact that it has no runtime overhead, like you can just change it and it will change your code. I remember talking with you about like how you could possibly do something like this, you and Dominic, at the View conference. So don't tell about it. And I'm stoked to see that you were actually able to figure it out, and it's really really like I am like I think it's probably the most I don't know, impressive library in the Svelte ecosystem, because it's really rich. Like you guys really like are spoiling us. And I think that like it really
Thank you.
shows, because I think Rich is really like I think it's also one of the favorite library for Rich, and I really want to try something now. I said it multiple times, but I really want to try something because it's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if there were any questions or just general compliments. So
Cool. Awesome. Great. Yeah.
it was
Thank
great
you.
to have you, and thank you for showing us and to showcase how super cool it is.
Thanks.
And
Thanks a lot.
I think like also like Svelte 5 is super helpful in your in this case, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I tried to do the Svelte Studio before, actually, before Svelte 5 was around, and I tried to do it with stores, and this whole studio has a very particular way of managing state, because basically there's only one state, and all these. I mean, I can do people still see my screen? I think they do, right?
Yes.
So if I activate the studio again, all these things that you see up here, everything is like a separate extension. So it's built to be extendable. And every extension can access other extensions and act on them and stuff like that. But that was really hard to do with Svelte 4, because stores were just not flexible enough in a way.
Well, I mean, even
And
just the fact that stores are like coarse grained, so like it
yeah.
would mean that whenever you set something, everything will need to be updated. So
Yeah, exactly. And
probably
I
a big
think there is actually a super nice library which is called Immer.js. I don't know if you know it.
Yeah.
And there's like a library that is exposing the Svelte contract store to Immer.js objects.
Okay.
And that's what I used before, and it was quite a pain to wire things up so that kind of everything works. But now it really just works. It's really great. Makes total sense. And I'm looking forward to your on-change PR, by the way. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I
Very
don't
much
know if it will land. I hope it will, because I think it will solve a lot of problems, and it will make a bit easier and like do stuff without needing an effect. Like for example, the thing that you did with an effect here, like the look at, that could have been just an unchange. And it's
True. Yeah.
always good to avoid effects, in my opinion. I know that
Yeah,
I am biased, and like a lot of people do it anyway.
that is true.
Yeah.
The thing to look out for is that basically you in 3D development, you are not relying on effects that much. You are
Yeah.
more relying on frame handling. So you're doing things every frame,
Yeah.
and because reactivity, as cool as it is a slight overhead
Oh
if
yeah.
compared to just reading like a regular variable. And of course, Svelte can help you to basically prototype, scaffold entire games really quickly.
Mhm.
But if it comes to performance optimization, there is, of course, there are ways to make it more performant, and that is most of the time to get rid of reactivity.
Yeah.
That's just how it
I
is.
mean, at the end of the day, it's probably like it's the same. It's probably the same trade-off that we have for websites, because obviously
Yeah,
writing vanilla JavaScript will be more performant than writing with a
exactly.
reactive signal. But there is a trade-off between like being able to do it declaratively in a way that it's very easy to reason about and be a bit less performant, or do it completely vanilla and be more performant. And I think like what you say, like you can have an in between, like
Yeah,
not let everything go through the reactivity system and do something yourself. So yeah, I think it's nice.
exactly. Just basically just how I showed it. This is very much like a common pattern that you instantiate objects like this, because
Mhm.
this already sets up so many things for you. It adds the stuff to the scene hierarchy. It automatically disposes stuff. It creates a context, stuff like that. But then you get a reference to the object itself and then act on it
Mhm.
imperatively.
Yep.
So that is quite a common pattern, and it's proven to be quite performant, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, there
wonder
was
if,
actually a question. There was a question. 1 second.
yeah, there was a
I'm
question.
going
Yeah, there are a lot of examples in 3JS website. Some of them are implemented under Threlte extras. I see. What should people need to pay attention? What may be tricky if we want to implement others?
Okay. So I think the reason the question is that some of our examples try to mimic what the 3JS example, the corresponding 3JS example looks like, and what to look out for. I cannot make like a general answer to that. Just that for frame handling, that is the request animation frame of Threlte is called use task. I think this is one of the main APIs that we now have. It's I think it's in there since Thread 7, somewhere in between Thread 7, and this is like this was a super important step in Thread as well, because what it does is that it adds a task to the task scheduling system. It sounds really odd, and it's quite a complicated API, but it allows to do so many things that were just not possible. Basically, the idea is that you only have one request animation frame in your entire app, and but you need to hook into this one request animation frame from any component. This is just how it
Mhm.
goes, right? You are using this. If you would be request animation frame inside of this component and you instantiate that component 10 times, you already have 10 request animation frames, and things add up quite quickly. So we came up with this task scheduler, which allows you to schedule tasks and declare dependencies to other tasks. Imagine you have like a character controller with physics and the camera attached, and the camera needs to wait for its updates before everything else kind of is updated. And these are these dependencies.
Mhm.
So this is really powerful. And this is one thing that isn't really in there in these 3JS examples. And but you can just use task just like this, and it's kind of a regular request animation frame thing.
Yep, pretty cool. A lot of love, and it's well like deserved.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Was it?
Thank you
I
very
mean,
much.
it's also not. It's. I really have to emphasize that it wasn't only me.
Oh yeah, obviously.
It's like a team
Every
effort
big,
of like
as every
yeah,
big
it's a
open
team
source
effort of like
project.
six people or 7 people who are in like the main team, and who did like the work of what do you say, the work of giants or something like that, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super grateful to be part of that actually.
Okay. Thank you very much for presenting. Thank you guys for sticking around. I hope you learned something and got a bit of knowledge and fun in this week in Svelte. And see
Yeah,
you
thank
guys
you.
next week. Thank you, Grisha. Bye bye.
Thanks, Paolo. Bye.
Bye bye.